All right, welcome back to Year One Podcast. This is episode 17. They're flying by, but we appreciate everyone listening. And joining me, as always, is the insightful trio Micah McNeil, Felipe Segura, and Zachary Crilly. So this episode is an interesting one. We're switching it up a bit, but we're gonna try something new, and all of us are bringing a article or topic to the table that we found interesting during the week. And today we'll be talking about some topics like new happenings with AI and OpenAI, a article on the productivity pay gap, and then we'll finish up with insights from an entrepreneur that is pretty world famous from Red Bull. So hopefully this kind of episode is informative and we can continue to produce this kind of stuff. So let us know what you guys think. But to start things off, I want to share something that goes along with the OpenAI trend that Mike and Felipe will dive into. But I found this article that compares productivity to pay for the last 60 years. So from 1979 to now, productivity per person has increased 64.7%, meaning one person can produce 165% more output than before, but pay has only increased 14.8%. So basically, people are producing more and getting paid less, which is especially true right now because we're seeing all of these layoffs. And I in fact got deemed obsolete from a brand management role because of technology. And I think a conclusion that can be drawn here is that if you do not have a business or equity in a business, then you're basically being taken advantage of. I know it sounds pretty hardo, but if you want to take advantage of these increases in technology, you have to own or have equity in a business. And let's take the tech sector, for example. Like tech salaries have actually decreased by 9% from 2022 to 2023. And there were over double the amount of layoffs in 23 at 200,000 people. So really the moral of the story is that revenue per employee is going up and these employees' salaries are going down. And with all of these new efficiencies with ChatGPT, that's only going to increase. So what do you guys
Hasn't that
think
always
about
been
all
the
this?
case? Hasn't it always been the case that you need to like the surest way to cover your butt is to own assets?
That's true, but it's especially true right now, especially for employees because employees are more productive than ever.
Well, actually, so I think what unions try to do, if I'm not mistaken, is they try to get their employees as much money as possible, but they don't try to get them equity in the business itself because they're not interested in the ups and downs of the company. They're interested in getting you as much uh, money as possible. So those are kind of situations, maybe Zach, tying to your question of like, doesn't assets always make you money? I suppose, but there is an argument that sometimes it's better to just get paid up
Yeah,
front.
I mean cash is
Yeah,
king, right?
yeah, but equity is important, right? Naval has that famous thread where he's like, "You're not going to get rich renting out your time, just working the hours." When I was sort of viewing this, from looking at it from 1979 to 2022, productivity has raised 64%, whereas pay has raised 14%. So essentially, what you have is people working, right? Let's define what productivity is. What productivity is how much income is generated, right? So what you're seeing is this vast diversion between how much work and productivity people are putting in versus the amount of money that they're getting for it. And this divergence, I think, for sure, it leads opportunities for entrepreneurs. But the problem I think that it creates that's even bigger is individuals aren't taking more of the pie, right? So incomes are being generated, revenues being generated, but civilians and everyday people aren't, that average day worker isn't getting enough a piece of that pie. And I think that creates a lot of the issues that we have. So, I think, yeah, obviously it sounds good on an individual level. Let's try, how do we see this as an opportunity, right, to make money? But I think the biggest problem is if we focus on that and just leave everyone else astray, what you're going to have is a lot of problems you have now with people with very different values and beliefs. And it's because the work that they're putting in is not matching what they're getting in. So because of that, they're super upset, and that leads a lot to the problems we have now.
And my rebuttal to that, Michael, would be like, okay, then like, what is to be done then? What is the solution? Because I know what it's not. I know it's not like government redistributing wealth. I know that it's not like mandating certain equity stacks or whatever. So then in my mind it's like, okay, I'm a free market believer. I have to have a faith that um, the optimal solution is that companies will come along that have a integrated equity system for their employees, and then they're going to attract better talent, which will make them a better firm and deliver better products over the long term. I feel like that's the only solution.
Well, I think you sort of just answered the question in your belief. There needs to be sort of incentive bridging the two together. And that can be done from a policy standpoint. I think that's right now the biggest, because if you look at the link that Gavin sent, and up until 1980, they were in vast correlation, and then they just started to diverge. So as an entrepreneur, like, sure, that's great for you, but if you don't have a society to also reap the benefits of that, you're not gonna, like, who cares about making money if there's like no reason to make money, right? If something falls, yeah, if the world is burning, what does making money even matter? So that's sort of the issue.
I hear you 100%. I feel like this is something that's repeated so often, but it's like, okay, then what's the solution? And I think the only
Mm-hmm.
solution is good companies coming around, taking an alternative approach to the equity stack, and then being better because of it. And
Yeah.
there's examples of it out there. Like I know
Mm-hmm.
Sam Walton, the Walmart guy, prioritized
Right.
that in terms of giving people equity. That was a big part of his story. And then I listened to a podcast recently about the Kinko's founder, which none of us have ever used, but he had every store owner would be bought in, and it was a
Mm-hmm.
super complex and like non non-traditional way of doing ownership, but it got people incentivized and bought in. And like
Mm-hmm.
it, I mean, for me, like I would love to create an amazing business and make everybody that helped me along the way fabulously wealthy. Like that's like a dream, you know?
Me too.
Yeah,
I
well, I do think there's one thing though we're not looking at in the graph is that if productivity goes up but your wages don't go up, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not benefiting from it if your wages don't go up, because things will actually deflationarily go down with the increase in productivity. So there is that side of things, because technology is essentially the only thing that creates deflation in today's times, right? It's just cheaper now to set up like a website or something than it's ever been. I think there was like back then, if you wanted someone to pay someone to like build a website for you, you pay them a few $1,000s. Now you can just go on Wix and make one, right? So I do think that there is a certain side to that, and I think when we're thinking about just overall kind of efficiency and productivity. Mike, I just sent to the group the video of the first Microsoft Excel commercial. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it's basically like saying how revolutionary it is that you could put things in like an Excel sheet and then like make categories and all these things, and how it used to take people 3-4 days to do this. And now just thinking about that concept as it pertains to AI, to write a paper or whatnot. I mean, yeah, th- uh, this article is stating something that I think we all feel is coming, which is crazy productivity gains. Yeah.
Exactly. And Felipe, to go along with that point, it's never been easier to do all those things. And I'm coming from the perspective of entrepreneurship and thinking that you will never get all of the productivity benefits unless you own the company. So I'm thinking that becoming an entrepreneur is the ultimate way to prevent being taken advantage of, or whatever word you want to use. But Zach, to your point, like even in the case where companies give great packages, you're still depending on them to do so, and you're still
Yeah.
at the whims of the company in order to see all of your productivity being accounted for.
Well, I mean, inherently, you're in order for an employee to be worthwhile, they have to be producing more money for the firm than they cost,
Right.
right? Like, that's just a
Yeah.
fundamental story.
And that's what I'm saying. Like in order to get all of that benefit, you need a company.
Yes, I think that the
I don't
counter
know if you need a company.
an argument to that would be like maybe like my sister is a consultant for Deloitte, right? Like maybe she couldn't make as much money on her own because she doesn't have the ecosystem and the infrastructure that Deloitte provides, and there's a value in that. So I hear you, and like obviously like I'm pro entrepreneurship and it's the path that I've chosen, but I don't think that that's like the one solution to this. I think that there's a lot of people that have different perspectives, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone's meant to be an entrepreneur, but I think the point that we're talking about is you need equity in something. Like you're not going to get what you want just by working the hours, right? So I think that's central to it. But I do agree with you that
Yeah.
the notion of entrepreneurship could be very important, as you know what Felipe mentioned, as technology and continues to increase in our abilities to produce more. Um, so
So what's our takeaway here? Buy assets and get on cap tables. That's the message to the people.
they've been saying for generations.
Yeah.
Segue though.
But with all of that efficiency, we've seen the ChatGPT store come out. We've seen ChatGPT and OpenAI come out with some new video technology. Mike, I know you brought OpenAI's Sora to the table. Want to tell us a little bit about that? Yes.
Oh,
Ooh.
Michael just got cut.
All right, Micah just dropped out, but fundamentally, what we were
AI
seeing
didn't
right
like his
there,
questions. We cut him
yeah,
off.
what we
Yeah, I
were
mean
just
everything's
looking at
changing. We
was
keep on seeing this.
ChatGPT's Sora, and
Everything's changing. There's new tools every day, and it's making it easier to create things. I think that it's the most empowered time that we have to be creators, and it's like, okay, are you going to create something with it? Yes or no?
yeah, and what we were just looking at was a text to video basically tool that OpenAI has launched, and you can type in a sentence, and then a 10-second video will be spit out, and there's just countless ways. It's like DALL-E, but for video.
Yeah.
The entertainment industry.
All right, sorry about that, everyone, but we are back, and we were just going through the OpenAI Sora videos, which Micah was showing us and talking about the implications there. But Felipe, you had a good point there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just incredible these videos, what they're empowering people to be able to do, which is basically now you can just make your own content. And this goes beyond just like companies now being able to shoot commercials without film teams or political different politicians without like these massive consulting groups that cost millions of dollars to film ads. Like you're going to be able to now make your own movie and then shoot it out on YouTube. And if it's really good, people are going to all watch it. And for $0 or for minimal amount of money, you're going to be able to reap in all the benefits. So I think this is massively empowering, but I also think it ties into what we're saying. Like beforehand, to make a movie of that quality or a video of that quality, what did you need to employ? 6, 7 people? 7 people are making a salary off of this. Now it's just one person and whoever provides the software. So this is definitely, I think, going to be an interesting transition. And obviously Hollywood is probably trying to figure out what to do with this. So yeah, what are you guys thinking?
Nah, to your point though, the studios are definitely, their alarm bells are going off for sure. I mean, from a distribution sense, and then a sales sense, and then a publishing and licensing, all that, the studios will still have like sort of their um, competitive advantage over. But in terms of actually producing, and then we have, you can put it on Twitter for what it is at this point. Yeah, the alarm bells are definitely going off over there on like what can we do, how can we utilize this, and then from the individual producer, writer slash director, the job's just been made that easier, that fast. I remember, if you guys remember 10 months ago, the OpenAI released that video of Will Smith eating spaghetti. I don't know if you guys saw that. But, like, it looked like, I don't know if you guys have ever taken any psychedelics or anything, but it looked like a trip. Like, it literally looked like a psychedelic trip. And now you're seeing, the video I showed looked like some Italian city, right? Like, it's changed that fast, and it hasn't even been a calendar year. So where this can be even a year from now, 6 months from now, 5 years from now, is just going to be crazy. The smart money is finding out what to do about it. And how they can utilize it. So I think it's very cool and very interesting where this goes.
Yeah, and I think on a lower level, like social media marketing is going to change absolutely. Like if you were a social media marketing agency and you had people shooting different videos, investing in camera equipment, investing in employees, all of that basically goes to zero if that can really produce these 60-second videos for different products. And that's something that I want to explore as well, is how can this kind of change product photography and product videos.
Or Felipe, your thing.
Yeah, I mean, one thing for me is that I also looked at was the GPT store, which is an earlier iteration than this video product. And basically it's allowing different companies to input their own data and then use the ChatGPT engine to crawl through that data and then mix the two, both the ML and the data, right? And so this kind of solves a lot of the issues that ChatGPT was getting sued over with like the Washington Post about like, how can you show that this is actually not your own info, but this, and giving credit where credit's due, right? So I think that this is like a really interesting product, and it's actually really buggy right now. Like I tried to book a flight. They have one with Expedia, or I think it's Kayak. And it didn't really work all that well. I couldn't book the flight at the end. It gave me a list of options. So because it's so buggy, I think it just shows the opportunity that's on the horizon in it. And the UI and everything, I mean, right now everything's kind of in a demo mode. I think if you're only signed up with ChatGPT Plus, that you can like access it. But I think today it's not great, but if you jump on it early, right, like the early days of the internet with the mosaic and whatnot, like, I mean, you can see in the future something truly crazy. So yeah.
Yeah, and there's applications on that level, but I've actually done some of the creation. Like I created an app myself for this podcast. So what I would do is just upload all the notes associated with our episodes, and it would basically be an app that you can ask questions to that has all of this information about the podcast. So for example, I could ask, oh, what are some good topics we could discuss? And it will spit those out. And also, I've done things like a business partner helper, and you can upload your business model, or I mean, however much you trust these things. I don't know about uploading all of your data, but
Are you outsourcing me to AI, Gavin?
maybe be careful. But that's a question I wanted to ask though. Like, how much data would you give to an app like this, and where's the kind of balance between it has all your data but it's helping you so much?
That's the privacy question, bro. That's like our phones too.
Yeah,
You know?
and they already have all our stuff, so it's like might as well get some benefit out of it.
Well, I don't know if it can use your data though, other than for the purpose that you give it. Like, I don't think it's gonna use it for the ML, like the training of the next ChatGPT model. I think
You
that's.
don't think so?
I don't think that they'll do that. I mean, it's possible that they could do that.
I don't know if they're doing it now. I think it'd be stupid of them not to.
Well, I don't think then a lot of these companies that have such big repositories of data would give it to ChatGPT and allow it to crawl through if they knew that that was happening on the back end, right? And so, like, this is the question of trust. It might be mutual assured destruction if ChatGPT tries to do that.
I don't know. One clause in that terms of service, which is probably 50 pages long, could change that. So I have no idea.
Yeah, but then no
you-
one would join, and then the competitor, so like Gemini, if they promised that they would never do that, and there's proof that they're not like using people's data, that they're like integrating with the Gemini ML, like then Gemini would shoot up because all the companies would be giving these like options and these apps to Gemini, not ChatGPT, right? So that's like where competition and capitalism is awesome, you know?
The free market will take care of it. What's up with the Gemini rebrand? I logged in one day and Bard had transitioned into Gemini.
I actually don't get why they did. I think though Gemini was supposed to be separate at one point in something, and then I think they just put it together. But I was using ChatGPT in the end more than I was using Bard or Microsoft Bing search. I don't know what you guys were doing.
I still want to try. I want to try the Grok. I
Grok,
paid
yeah.
for Twitter Premium, and it said it would give me Grok, and it didn't.
Yeah, I don't know.
Really?
I know.
Honestly, I think it's going to come down to, I mean, there's only one Google, right? And I feel like it's the similar case with these ChatGPTs and large language models where there's only going to be one huge winner, and that's who's going to have the most users, which is ChatGPT right now.
Though. There's Firefox, there's DuckDuckGo. That's a good point on the privacy.
Yeah, but what percentage of the market has I've never used DuckDuckGo in my life.
I use DuckDuckGo.
You're 1% of the 1% that.
Maybe, but I think that you're right. I mean, it's like anything. Like it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of people are going to use 20% of products, and maybe it's even thinner with these huge, like, because this is like infrastructure, right? It's like it's like digital roads and like such heavy stuff to build that, yeah, you're right. I'm sure that there will be a few winners. But I think that there's going to be a heck of a lot of big, juicy scraps that are going to be falling all over the place.
Yeah, I know. And there's just so many things that ChatGPT is releasing now, like Sora, they have the store, they have Dolly, and all of those are just integrating and providing more value. So it's going to be harder and harder when they have more and more resources to just keep on building.
Crazy. Can we transition to my thing now?
Go for it.
Red Bull. The Red Bull founder is a stud. What a guy. I didn't know his story. He was traveling in Thailand. He's an Austrian guy. He's traveling in Thailand. I guess he reads an article or something that says who made the most money in Thailand that year. And he sees that the guy that made the most money is selling some crazy energy drink. And he finds the guy and gets him to start a partnership with him to start Red Bull. Obviously, we all know Red Bull. Why do we all know Red Bull? Because he's one of the best marketers of our generation. Like the amount of stories, and he doesn't care. I don't even know how to pronounce his name, and he's probably happy that we're not saying his name because he doesn't care. He just wants people to talk about Red Bull. And that was my takeaway, is like somebody who's so focused on their product and like, hey, like, it doesn't matter about you. It just matters that your work gets noticed and that your product gets noticed.
100%. And then I what I found, or some of the notes that I took, was just like that I found like super interesting, was the fact that he was a marketing director at a toothpaste company until he was 38. And then he was like, all right, I sort of have this want for independence. Same with even like a Sam Walton type character. Like when he founded Walmart, he was like 40 when he founded Walmart. Like, so just understanding that it isn't linear. And then when you like mentioned marketing, like they literally still to this day, they outsource everything from distribution to production to licensing. They don't do any of that. all they do is marketing. What I found super interesting was the fact on how they came up with the slogan "Red Bull gives you wings." And I think how you pronounce his name is like Dietrich Mateschitz, something German, Austrian, I don't know. But they sat on that idea for like a year and a half, and during that time they had no money. And he was like coming. So what he did, because they had no money, he became a freelance consulting for another marketing or agency. I found that super interesting. And then a year and a half later, they come up with Red Bull gives you wings, and now that's synonymous with Red Bull. And that's 40 years later. That when I say that, we know what I'm automatically talking about. So understanding the beauty in marketing and how they built that product has been absolutely beautiful. One final note that I took is the fact that they didn't pay a dividend for 15 years. That is insane. They were profitable after the third year of production and licensing and everything. And it took them 15 years before they paid a dividend. So retain earnings, any money they have, operating income that they have after, they didn't give that back to shareholders. So I found that interesting, that someone that loved the product and had meaningful work that he cared about so much to be super interesting.
Cool about that interview was, or that podcast was, he did also raise debt, which is like pretty crazy when you think about it. Because like nowadays it's all about raise a ton of money and then go and like scale as quickly as possible, get in front of all your competitors. And this guy instead just said, no, like we're going to take all of our earnings, reinvest in the business, and I don't want to give up equity. I want to keep it, and then eventually we'll get money through dividends. That long-term perspective, I mean, just absolutely crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this plays to one of our earlier topics of like anonymity versus being known. And he was just so anonymous and okay with that. And imagine you have a company that's just making you hundreds of millions of dollars a year and nobody knows your name. That there's something to that is just beautiful.
But everybody knows the name of your product.
Yeah.
Like that's cool. And
Yeah.
I think two things that I learned from it too is one, like he did one thing really well, like the drink. That's it. It's one product. And he said people would come to him and they'd be like, hey, let's make Red Bull gum. Let's make Red Bull this. Let's make Red Bull that. And he's like, nope, we make a drink and we market it well. And then the marketing side thing that stuck out with me was like A, like do alternative funky things, and then B, make it easy for the media companies to blow it up, right? Like he would go and they would support Micah base jumping off some cliff somewhere and have all the content and then just hand it to them. And for the media companies, it's like, great. Like that's just money that we saved and a great product. It's a brilliant way to think about marketing. Go where people aren't going, and then make it easy for people to give a bigger platform to your content.
Yeah, I also think what's interesting is one of their biggest competitors, Monster. I did some research. It looks like they did a very similar strategy as Red Bull in terms of getting their brand out the door, which was like doing these extreme sports sponsorships as well. So I think that's super interesting that the number two just did exactly what the number one was doing and kind of just like let their company grow in a similar fashion. And like, I know other energy drinks like have tried to sponsor F1 teams and everything, but obviously I think Red Bull, I mean, is number one because they're not like afraid to make those big bets in the first place. I think they're the first ones to make their own energy race F1 team, buy sports teams, rebrand it as the companies. So yeah, super.
You,
It's a ballsy company.
yeah.
Even from the get, they said when he made it, like they were like, hey, he was trying to sell it for, I don't know, a couple euros per thing. They're like, you can get a coffee for €1. Who's gonna buy this? But like, it was just such a premium product that it worked. you know.
Right, and then everyone copies it. To your point, Felipe, it's like the first to the door gets the whole market, right? It's always going to be Uber then Lyft, right? It's always going to be Twitter and then Threads, right? The first to the door always gets it. It's always going to be Red Bull, Monster, and then everything else. So, being contrarian and being okay with going against the herd has a big upside to it. So it's important to think about that in business. I think finally what David Sinra sort of finished with that was like very important to Dietrich or whatever his name is, well, I'm sorry, I'm not to say it like that, but he said like money was never his incentive, and sort of freedom and independence in finding meaningful work. And I think that's super important in finding work. And just to quote Naval, like I do all the time, but he says, find work that feels like play. And I think that's super important. That's why guys like Charlie Munger are alive until 90 doing what they want. Warren Buffett eats McDonald's every day, but he loves the work that he does, right? And he's never going to retire. So I think that's really important for me and for all of us, is find work that is extremely meaningful to us and do it for a long time. And the payouts will not only compound, but they'll pay off in the future. So I think that's super important. I love that.
That's a great thing to end on, Micah, because I think that like that can just get lost so much, you know, and to just constantly ask yourself like, am I enjoying this? Is this fun? And if it's not, how can I build a bridge into making it something that would be fun?
Yeah, there you have it, folks. Find meaningful work. But
Easier said
great
than
point.
done. Easier said than done.
Yeah. But great point, Micah. And to everyone, thanks for listening. We're working through the kinks here. We'll have some better products in the
Trying to
future.
make a better product for you guys.
Yeah, we'll keep on continuing the iteration. But enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.